Nice. Well, welcome to the conversation where we unpack the wild, interconnected chaos shaping our world, including the population decline and all the reasons for it. You're here with Joe Edgar and
Ethan Kroc.
nice. I don't know, should I call you Ethan or should I call you Crocky? And Crocky just naturally comes out, but how is it with living with your dad? Do
No,
they?
he's Pop Pop now. He's
Oh,
Pop
as
Pop,
he's
yeah.
ah.
Because there's a lot of grandkids and
I did
whatnot.
I did see the video where basically he's running in dress. Was he dressed as an elf or dressed
Yeah,
as a Santa
no, every
Claus?
year they do the Polar Express, and so he dresses up as all the Tom Hanks characters, and Mum tries to help him out a bit with dressing up as elves and
That is
Mrs.
legend.
Claus, whatever. Yeah.
So how did not hurricane, cyclone Alfred go?
Well, yeah, a lot of people here were worried about Alfred, but I mean, I think we had 250,000 homes without power. There's still some houses that don't have power. So, from that point of view, it was pretty bad, but we were expecting like way more flooding. There's
Mhm.
typically a flood zone that happens just in this area annually anyway. And so when you add in, 36 hours of straight rainfall, um, they thought it was going to flood a lot more than it did.
Why do they call it a cyclone? We don't say cyclones. It dawned on me, like, why do they not call it a hurricane? Like, we call them hurricanes, they call them cyclones, and then there's
So,
typhoons.
yeah, so a
I think it's
hurricane,
because the toilets
yeah,
go in the other direction. And
it's exactly what it is. A cyclone goes clockwise, and then a hurricane goes anti-clockwise. And I don't know, hurricane just sounds scarier, I think. So,
because now I can't say cyclone without the Aussie accent. It's like cyclone.
I don't know. Like, if there was ever a big enough cyclone, I think you guys would start calling the storm a cyclone.
You said you don't participate in daylight savings?
No, it's 9 o'clock in the morning here. It's 10 o'clock in Sydney. And so this is what's funny about the whole daylight saving thing. So we don't have daylight saving in Queensland, but I live 10 kilometres north of the border. So in
Of where there is daylight savings.
so there's a city where on one side of the road right now it's 9 o'clock, so the shops are just opening. On the other side of the road, the shops have been open for an hour. It's the border.
I mean, but that does give you a lot of leeway because now if you're like telling someone like, oh yeah, I'll be there, then you can say, oh well, I didn't realize you meant then. I was.
That is my go-to excuse because when I drove past the airport, it recalibrates my phone, the time where
So
I
now
am.
you
And
have a 2 hour buffer no matter what you're
so,
doing.
so sometimes my phone's, an hour this way, an hour that. It's like jumping when I'm not looking. And so whenever I catch it, unless I'm at home and I'm looking at something that's analog, then yeah, and even my computer will jump into the southern zone sometimes. So yeah, I think America's trying to make it a medical situation there with daylight saving, like saying something about your archaic rhythmic clock or something. I don't know what it's
Right.
called, but
Your
I mean,
yeah, your internal rhythmic clock. Yeah, it's messing up. Your circadian clock.
like, do people not go on aeroplanes or drive or go interstate or like?
Not to mention, there's 4 time zones in the U.S. So no matter what you're faced with, the time zone.
Yes,
But
you're
daylight
screwed if you live
savings has
in.
been
Yeah.
kicked around for a long time. So now they're talking about we're finally going to get rid of this daylight savings. The problem is daylight savings is awful anyway, and I have to take calls all over the world. No matter what, it's a jumble. And it's okay if we all do it together. But like right now, Europe has not done daylight savings. They don't do it till next week. So if we either all in the world have to do it together or nobody do it together. But I don't think that's ever going to happen. So even if we don't do daylight savings, we're going to still have the rest of the world doing daylight savings, which is going to mess us all up.
Yeah, why can't we, I don't know, vote on a centralized time zone, right? Like, and then this is the world clock, right? And then, and if you wanted to be, feel special, world clock plus whatever, but I think that would work, right? Like, and this is the thing too. I think there's more and more people, I don't know, again, America is so big and diverse, but like a lot of Australians do have to run on other people's time zones. Like
Right.
when we trade, if we want to do work internationally or we want to trade, we have to do it when everyone is asleep here anyway. So I guess,
Like Sydney's market's just opening and the US is just going to bed, right?
well, I think, New York, Vegas, right? They're never going to sleep. LA, I guess you got to have a hangover and wake up at some point. But, like maybe middle America. I don't understand who's freaking out about an hour time zone, and for me, who has family that live in the States, friends that live in the States, I just have to look up my phone and look up what the time zone is. Like,
Yeah, what are your hours of calling? Because it's what, like 5 or 6 here, so you probably have another 4 hours. So you have until like noon your time before it's like everybody's asleep or something.
yeah, no, I think Arizona, they're a couple of hours after you, right?
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, yeah. Actually, part of Arizona doesn't participate in daylight savings, right?
I don't know. They do funny things. They do
See,
funny
that's the
things in the
problem. That's
desert.
why daylight savings wouldn't help us do anything.
Well,
anyway,
when
so.
I was in Arizona, we did daylight saving. I lived in Arizona for almost 10 years. And so I remember doing
So you
daylight
must
saving
have.
there. I lived in Sydney for 20-something years, so I remember doing daylight saving there. I've just always done it. And yeah, it is fun to live without it here, but as I said, it still messes around with me because I'm on the border.
I know,
anyway.
because everybody else changes, so it's like, and then you have daylight. Oh no, it's half-hour differences, right? Adelaide and Sydney are like a half hour off or something.
But I think Queenslanders don't need the clock to tell us what to do. So this is the other thing. This is the other funny thing about daylight saving, right? Like, why does it matter whether it's 7 or 8 when the sun's up, right? Like, if the sun's out, I'm going to go out and enjoy it. Like, I live on the beach here, so everyone likes to go to the surf, in the morning, in the afternoon.
If I could control it, I would definitely swing daylight savings earlier because I'm an earlier person. Like I still play basketball early, but I'm like, if the sun's out, I don't want to be playing ball. I'd much rather be doing it when it's dark, so then I have the whole day.
Have you seen the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy?
No.
Okay, I recommend you go see it, and just even if it's just the first 5 minutes, you'll get what I'm talking about. But it's based in South Africa, and so you got the Western civilization, current Western civilization of the time. Kind of reminds me of Australia. They talk funny, and they don't treat the natives very good. And then there's a tribe out there that has never, seen white people or modern civilization, and they see a plane and they just think it's the gods, and something falls out of the plane and they think it's a gift from God. And it's a Coke bottle, right? And they, it's glass. They haven't seen it before. Anyway, when they show you the whole point of view of the story is told from the tribe's point of view, and so it's very basic and simple and not confusing. And then they compare that to the South Africans living in the city, and at 8 o'clock they have to get out of beds. At 8:30 they have to eat. They have to get in their car at a certain time. At 9 o'clock they have to sit down at their desk and look busy. At 11 o'clock they don't have to look busy for 15 minutes. And then at 11:15, they have to look busy again until 12 o'clock when they're allowed to eat, right? And it's like the whole day.
That's how you're comparing Australia. It's basically when the U.S. is awake, look busy.
I'm not saying Australia. I'm saying where I live in, particularly Queensland, we don't live by the clock. We live by the weather.
Speaking of South Africa, you saw what's going on with Trump and Musk, and he's not putting satellites in. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in South Africa, and I don't want to jump deep into South Africa. But I do know you've been here for 10 years, so you follow American politics. Like, what do you think of this kind of Trump and Musk ordeal? It's been a hot topic here. In fact, I'm fingers crossed I might be in the Wall Street Journal so I write in the Forbes article will go out tomorrow, but I've been trying to get in the Wall Street Journal for a while, and then oddly enough, off of one of my tweets, I may get quoted. So we'll see if it goes in. But really, the heart of the article is around kind of the Elon Musk impact on economics and small business. So.
Yeah, so the tariffs, I think, I just started hitting us yesterday on aluminium and steel. Look, my biggest problem to begin with, before Musk and Trump, my biggest problem has been the media. The media is like the clock, and it tells most people what to think and what to think about who or what.
I keep hearing this mainstream media. My issue is like, I think we have to redefine what mainstream media is.
Did I say mainstream? Did I say mainstream media?
Well, you said media. That's what I'm just like. I just want to define what we call the media.
Sure,
right?
Media, all of it, right? And look, if you hear the Democrats whinging now, they're afraid of Musk because he's got this platform, which is X, right? Which no one cared about bloody 10 years ago because they had all the power in the networks. I think the government's biggest problem is the internet in general. It's not one platform. It's, once you control one platform, that we're past a point now with technology and people's awareness that we can find our own platforms to communicate and share messages now, right? Like we have our own telegrams. And because no one's buying the telegram anymore, they don't have any money, and they can't put their shiz at the bottom of every football game like they used to. And then you've also got a lot of governments, religious institutions, companies that have some questionable histories that are now, that information is becoming public. And those companies, governments, and institutions have a crisis on how to control that information coming to light, because it's going to look bad no matter
You're
what.
saying how to control the narrative.
So I didn't mean
now,
to
how do you
in.
compare it just to know, like, let's compare it to controlling the narrative in Russia versus controlling the narrative in the U.S. You see them similar as in...
So America's got a big problem right now, right? A big problem, because part of Trump's running mandate was transparency on many things. Like, you know, people are always in the media. I think there's a lot of talking points. And I think to get the clearest view these days, you have to follow some people who you think are intelligent, who are willing to share their point of view about certain things. And I think that's how you get a better understanding of what's going on, rather than tuning into 7 o'clock, letting the clock and the TV tell you exactly what's going on in your life.
The 5 o'clock news, is that right?
Yeah, 100%. And so instead of getting updates from people that have been wrong about everything for the last 7 years, maybe start tuning into people that have been right about things. A lot of those people have been cancelled by what you would call the mainstream, but they're not cancelled. Some of those people have bigger platforms than they've ever had, even though the media or mainstream media still tries to ignore them. And that's why you have people podcasting now. Podcasting is
well, the reason
huge.
I brought up even defining mainstream media is because, like, Musk has, I think, 214 million followers. I mean, he is mainstream media now.
But
So
he would have...
you see who tuned in to CNN, and they're averaging out like 250,000 people, and you and I both know their average age is probably like 82.
Yeah.
So Musk with 214 million reach, he is mainstream media. I mean, many of these influencers, if you will, are really mainstream media because they have such a large voice. I define the mainstream media as being like who can reach the main part of the audience that you're trying to reach. And
yeah, so yeah, that's the problem that the governments are having right now, right? In the past, they had more of a control of what you would call the narrative or the noise, and now you've got individuals, you know, and you know, I think a lot of people, even there's some of these big influencers, a lot of people are sitting there with popcorn waiting for them to crash, you know, and I think a lot of them confuse that for support, you know, or power. Like, you know, you've got some idiots out there just...
You mean as far as like a follower? Some people follow just to see it.
100%.
Crash and burn. Some people follow because they want to hear what they say.
Even Musk, I could give you my personal view on Musk. I don't trust him. I'm grateful for a lot of the things that he's done. I wish that there was more people with power that made conscious decisions and you know, made a stand instead of just cowering to whatever the masses is complaining about today.
I was a big Musk fan. I mean, he's in Austin, tech entrepreneur. I'm like, the guy's, you know, has brought around a lot of stuff. He's got to take a lot of things to bring out the businesses that he has. I have his calling Senator Kelly a traitor was a line crosser for me. That was a bit of a shock. I'm not a big Kelly fan, but I am, like, he's a veteran. 20-year veteran, and he was willing to do what Vance wouldn't do. Vance, you know, President Zelensky said, have you been there? Have you checked out Ukraine? And he's like, I read it, you know, but Kelly was willing to go. And for him to come back, put together a tweet, I'm like, listen, I can respect that, but to go out and call him a traitor, I'm like, wait a minute, this is a backwards event here.
Yes, maybe I might offend you here, but I think there's a lot of traitors. I think there's a lot of traitors in the government. You know, my government, your government. I think there are a lot of traitors. There are a lot of people that have sold, representatives that are supposed to be representing us, and they've sold us out for money, for sure. And it happens time and time again. And the problem is, though, is you have a lot of this is coming out, and we're not seeing accountability. I just want to finish off why I don't trust Musk, and then I'll move on to Trump. But Musk, he is good friends with Michael Schellenberger. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. He's a reporter And he was the reporter that helped him out with the ex-Twitter files in some different countries exposing the government censorship. And he's also, his latest stuff, Michael, is trying to help these whistleblowers talk about special access programs in the military that have been covered up for decades. And Elon Musk is saying that there's nothing to that. So either, Elon Musk has got so much money riding on these tubes full of gas that are shooting up into space that, he doesn't want there to be any other technology that's better than what he's using. So I think, he can't be honest about future tech because it would hurt his bank account bigger than anything.
I mean, he definitely wants long-term contracts. SpaceX is very valuable, but he's got competitors. He's not the only space satellite.
Mars is a grift. I mean, to some extent, there might be some real science involved there, but a lot of Mars is a grift because we know that as soon as you take anything biological out of the atmosphere and try to grow it in space or on another planet with different levels of UV, ultraviolet radiation, all these things, we're not going to be human. It's going to be an alien. It's going to be, we're going to have see-through skin and we're going to be able to see X-ray vision and, or infrared or something.
I definitely think Mars is a worthwhile endeavor. I'm also,
100%.
I support it. I love it. Part of it is like, if you look through history, you started like all the pioneers, where'd they go? All those who were, really seeking out adventure, they kept moving. And so the US is nothing but a whole bunch of adventurers, right? And then you go from the East Coast that they settled, the 13 colonies. Where did they go? They kept going. And so you see so many new technologies coming out of the West Coast of the United States. And these are the people who ultimately, wanted to take advantage of so many things, but we've run out of land. And so I think there's still a ton of people who want to go and be adventurous. And so the next phase is you see, Blue Horizon, you see SpaceX. Austin has a couple of, we just landed on the moon with one of our Firefly company here.
Australia has a space company too.
Company. They're popping up all over. That's what I mean is like, I definitely see us, space is the next place to go. So I'm all supportive of it. I wish I was a billionaire so I could, go and flaunt my own yacht in the form of a space rocket. But
yeah, you're not done yet, Joe. But no, look, I as I said, I believe there's some science there. And if we are the only life in the universe, which I think is highly unlikely, but if we are the only life in the universe, then it makes sense that we want to make sure we can spread this life, to other places, and it's not just all in the one spot, right?
Right. I mean, basically, you're saying Mars isn't necessarily a inhabitable place, but I think that is true. I don't know why we actually want to go to Mars. I don't see Mars as a big focus, but I do think figuring out the technology to be able to travel past Mars is probably a worthwhile endeavor. I don't think we'll be alive to see it, but so that technology has to grow in the back of somebody else.
Yeah. Well, sorry.
No, I just want to break this down because this is our first of what I hope are many podcasts. We are going to bring on, some other people to kind of join us. So I did kind of want to break down and find a little bit about you. You were born in Sydney. You're one of...
I was born in Canberra.
Were you born in Canberra? I didn't know.
I was born in Canberra. So that's
Even though
Australia's...
it's a capital, I think of it as a gambling place.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder why. It's like Washington. Washington is a territory. It's not a state. It was set up specifically to have our government there. It's really good, though, because we can revolt against our government real easy. Like every city's road leads back to Canberra and it's in the middle of nowhere and it could very easily be overpopulated. If we had the DC riots or something in Canberra, I mean, that's the only thing we have in Australia that's keeping us from being totally taken out by our leaders. But yeah, they tried, and we had to amass on the capital. I think there was a million people there during COVID, and that was to get rid of the mandate.
Wow.
So
as protests,
dude, they held the city hostage for probably about 2 weeks. I think it was 10 days. But because
we didn't really protest here, we all got out and started ripping stuff out and having riots all over every city.
Yeah. We're just Australians. We just like to F around with people. So, you had 10,000 cars. And if there was an event happening in the city, we would just put all our 10,000 cars in that spot in the city and it's gridlock. You can't do anything. So, politician flies into the airport, send the cars out, the politician's stuck at the airport. They have to send in extra police. They have to bring in the military. The budget alone, it costs too much.
You're born in Canberra.
So born in Canberra.
Siblings.
I'm
one of 5. You're middle child.
second to middle. So I'm the second eldest. First oldest son. I've got an older sister, a younger brother, and 2 younger sisters.
Nice. And then you do have, let's see, you first married an American. I'm trying to count how many kids you have.
Yeah, I've got 5 kids.
And part of this is population. It's worthwhile talking about population decline. So
yeah,
how old are
so
the boys now?
my oldest is 16.
Oh.
So he's driving. Yeah, Thurston's driving. Not when I was growing up. I think 20 years ago, everyone was talking about the Clooney plan. And I'm on the Musk plan. So
I hear he's up to like 14 or something now.
I don't know. But I'm trying to make sure that there's a population in the future for sure.
I mean, that's really the heart, though, is that so to have a fertility rate that means you have a growing population, you need 2.1 per couple, which really means every woman. Every woman needs to have 2.1 children. And the 0.1 is to, encompass death, basically to have a flatline population. So you need more than that to be growing. In most developed countries, including, throughout Europe, they have some of the fastest declining. The US, I think we're at 1.7. Really, if you look, the only continent that it has a growing population is really Africa. And so some of those countries have a 7, where they're, every woman is having 7 children. Europe is the fastest declining. I don't know what Australia is, but overall we have this problem where we had baby boomers, and this impacts everything from Social Security, Medicare here in the US, so everything involved in taxes, it involves economics, flow of funds, it involves distribution because you have these population changes. So if you were to build a health plan or a retirement plan, it's a great idea where you say, how about all of those working age right now pay into it and they support all the elderly. And then there's way more money than you need. So it's a great plan, but it only works if the population keeps growing. So as soon as that population shrinks, which our population, we have a missing group. And so we're the Gen X. And so there's not enough of us to pay for the baby boomers. And so we have a huge problem with this in the US, but the whole world is faced with this problem. Everyone who has a retirement system is faced with the same problem because there's not enough of us. But then the generation right after us hopped back up to the same amount as the baby boomers. So now there's more of them, but they're staying flat, which means we don't have a growing population. We have a steady population, which is going to impact everything. Just think of the real estate that's going to happen here in the U.S. There was a report just out yesterday. New York and Chicago grew over the last 3 to 5 years, they estimate. However, most of it was all migration. Not immigration, but most likely illegals. They didn't really put that in there, but it's most likely illegal immigration that has grown these cities.
There's a lot of legal immigration too. This has been the problem, right?
Yeah.
So to help buffer the economies after COVID, this is what they do. They knew that population growth is going to overall add to the economy. It's going to hurt the per capita, but the overall bottom line is going to grow the economy. And so that's what a lot of the Western countries did. My country especially, we've got so many people coming in. We're taking in so many of the refugees. I think they said 25,000 from Afghanistan. From Gaza, 25,000. Is there even 25,000 people left in Gaza? And they're going to and the problem is so, I don't know how you're talking about the housing price. We've got a massive housing problem here because all these extra people coming in, there's no one's building houses for them.
So you have a housing shortage.
So to get a loan for a house in Sydney, you would have to at least be earning $300,000 a year.
Wow. Average house in the U.S. sells for about $450,000.
That's half the population, Joe. Half the population. And then a smaller city like Brisbane is still like $200,000 a year to own a house. This is like the rest of the population of America. So
it's nearly impossible. I mean, the starter home basically does not exist in most of the world today. I know Italy, Japan, and Estonia. So China.
And we have government incentives to help people get in, and it's still not enough. Yeah.
Well, it's so outrageous. I mean, when you go out to get your first job, you can't take on, well, in Austin, things have gone crazy, but to go and spend $800,000 on your first house is just not possible. But as I was saying, China, Japan, Italy, Russia, for its own regions, they have already started their population declines. So Japan shrunk by 500,000 last year. China was like 600,000. Russia's is open, but they estimate around $450,000, not including those who have died in the war. So as you see those shrink, Italy and Estonia have already kind of been faced with that because they have an older population. They've already been offering houses for like $1. So if you're an American or anyone, you can go there, buy it for $1. You have to agree. I think a lot of them are like live there for 6 months. You have to be able to fix it up and, restore it. And so they're trying to do quite a few things of that nature. But you're seeing a lot of the population decline happen in Europe, yet, we even go back to Brexit. Brexit, I don't think anyone questions it. It was definitely a mistake. I know most British people I talked to feel it was a mistake, but they had pride in it at the time. They didn't know it was a mistake till after. But a lot of it was racist. Or xenophobic, racist, however you want to say it. But Europe is mostly racist. Europe does not want, they pay a fortune to Turkey basically Turkey's job is to hold a whole bunch of people back and not allow them into Europe. But Europe's going to be faced with this problem similar to the rest of the world, is you have countries that have such large populations that we need, but, at the same time, a lot of people don't want. Now, the U.S. may fare better because the U.S. is a melting pot. So as a melting pot, they may be able to, mix some of these people in, but Europe does not have this. Europe is predominantly white, does not like Muslim. You're seeing lots of protests come out, and you just said in Australia they brought in a lot of the Palestinians. So a lot of this is seen as, and Australia's kind of a melting pot as well. It's one of those faraway lands.
I think America and Australia share, multiculturalism, at least in parts of its history. But so getting back to the Europeans are racist comment, I love it because it's coming from an American. I think if Americans had to share a border with more than 2 countries, I think there'd be a lot more perceived racism in America as well.
They seem to be pretty xenophobic as it is with with both borders at the moment.
Let's look at your neighbors right now. Yeah, I don't think I've seen a few images or clips from some hockey games recently that didn't look too pretty between neighbors. And then, I lived in Arizona for 10 years. So, I know what the attitude is like near the border, So, yeah, I think if America had to share borders with 10 other countries, I think America's interests would be very different. And the way America...
Even the way it is right now, you bring up a great point that's really, what's happening now. Trump just won an election in part because, Musk threw in a whole bunch of money. I do think he ultimately tipped it. But at the heart of it was this massive immigration issue. Like, how much money
did Kamala's campaign cost? It's got nothing to do with the money. It really is about the message. I was living in the States when Trump got elected the first time. And I remember what everyone was saying when he was talking about running. I remember what everyone was saying when he was actually running. And I remember what everyone was saying after he got elected. All right. So, he got elected for the same reason again, but I think he's got problems.
And what was that? Share with me. What do you think that reason was? What do you think
it's an anti-establishment. The establishment is so corrupt, and it's so blatantly corrupt, and it's so obvious right now that people are willing to throw their vote on something that will wreck it or destroy it or expose it more. We were promised day one. Like, I think a lot of people voted for transparency, government transparency, the Doge, a lot of this because it's reckless spending, but it's not just the spending, it's the laws they're breaking as well. So, and this is the problem is Trump ran on that transparency, and he's going to have a problem. You don't want to be the president that comes out and says, we were the bad guys. You know what I mean? And I thought it was, I was amazed that he got his cabinet through, like especially the Department of Defense.
We need to talk about that, but that would take too much. I'm sure.
But what I'm saying is they're gatekeeping right now. How long he accomplished so much in his first couple of weeks. And I remember him telling everyone.
What kind of transparency? When I read through Twitter, it cracks me up because everybody's like, we need the Epstein files released. And of course, it's like, I wonder I honestly think if you're telling me that a guy who ran many pageants and knew Epstein well never went to the island, our sitting president, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
But and then
I'm sure.
they want people accountable for COVID, right? And they
Hey,
want the
JFK, 9/11.
JFK, the files released, but they also want like still the loss. They want the facts about how we lost this second election done. I'm like, some of the things that are demanded about transparency, I'm like, yeah, but eventually logic has to come in and set where it's like, maybe,
No,
there's
no.
not this conspiracy you think there was.
No, that's what you're hoping for, but it's not going to happen, Joe. Look at last year, and this year especially, it's going to happen. These truths are coming out. There's no way of avoiding it. People will go to jail for some of the crimes that have been committed in the last 4 or 5 years. No doubt. No doubt. And then it won't be a laughing joke anymore. And you will see that at least half the population or half of the voters that elected Trump, they voted for him because they actually did believe, they actually did think that was going to get them closer to the truth, to some kind of government accountability. And that is a big thing. I think Trump's going to have a lot of problems coming up to your midterms if he still has not done anything about the transparency, because the entire base that was behind him, no matter what, the entire base that helped him out when you got RFK Jr. running with him, Vivek, all that base, it was all based on transparency. And it was based on day one. They were going to send files this way, send files that way.
This brings us down to like, let's define transparency, because I do agree.
No, you're saying that the people that listen to their clocks and watch their TVs are just going to forget about some of these things, but they're not going to forget about.
We got to move on to cover more topics, but I definitely agree with you. I want to see what goes on with transparency 100%. And so we'll see what comes out. Nothing has come out yet, but a lot of people have said we're ready. And I do hear that our new DOJ is putting together a lot of stuff. So we'll see what kind of comes out of some of this that's going on. So I only want to touch on my article that I have coming out tomorrow, which is really about venture capital, the amount of money that's been spending in venture capital. It makes up, the whole venture capital industry makes up about $200 billion. They sit on a lot of dry powder. However, the startups that have been getting funded, if you put that in perspective, the private equity industry, I mean, that's a small fund, $200 billion, the entire venture capital industry. But the fourth quarter of last year, 50% of all venture capital deployed was in exclusively of 5 deals. And all of them were in AI. And so if you follow what AI did, there's always like these trends, and venture follows these trends, and they're no different. And so AI is definitely the big one right now. The average deal valuation of a company they invest in was $500 million, which is astronomically high. I mean, normal startups are not getting 500 million valuation. But the reason I want to hit that in is, one, to tie the article in, but two, some of the things that have been coming out, which kind of died up and now it's coming back, it's definitely in the White House, they bring it up all the time, is cryptocurrency. If you're really, this blockchain, this cryptocurrency that is existing today, there's some strange, I don't know if you follow, I'll sum this up in a short quid, but Solana is founded by Elon Musk's cousins. Same guys who brought us the Solar City. Solar City was bought for $2 billion by Tesla. So his cousins went and put together Solana. Solana is basically the basic chain of which you can add a whole bunch of things on top, including these meme stocks. We had the president and his wife on Inauguration Day create their own meme stock, which is really confusing because they spike, and then there's like, the whole point of a meme stock is that everyday people can be what they call these whales. And by whale, I mean someone who has enough buying power that if they were to sell it, it crashes the whole thing. And it's really this kind of Ponzi scheme of the old airplane, like, first one to pull gets it all. And so if you follow what happened, they built it on Solana, but President Milei out of Argentina tweeted about this great, cryptocurrency that was coming out, promoting Argentina. 74,000 people lost a total of 236 million. I'm trying to look, it's like, why is this not making more news? Like, where is the money? Like, who pulled it out? Nobody really goes. There's a guy who's kind of connected to Milei. He deleted the tweet and he's kind of distanced himself from this guy, but they know each other well. So I'm not saying necessarily it was corrupt, but something is weird going on there. And then you add that into the news today. The Trump family has a venture fund they started by the name of World Liberty Finance. So World Liberty Finance has been in talks with Binance. Binance was a US crypto company, and he got busted. He turned himself in, but he got busted for money laundering and now kind of operates outside the US. And so they're in talks of, basically bringing some things together and maybe involving a pardon, which just like, wait a minute, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard. Like, you can't even make this stuff up. And you mix this on top of David Sachs, who has said he sold all of his personal holdings. David Sachs, part of the PayPal mafia, is now representing, I forget what they're calling him, the crypto czar or something like that is his position. And so he's really pushing a lot of crypto. The president has come out and said, we're going to put together a reserve. And so this reserve, luckily this reserve is not more money that we're putting in. So it's just basically seized. I don't want to call it money because it's not, it's seized crypto. And so we're holding that as
digital
a backstop.
assets. It's a digital asset.
Right. Digital assets, which I'll be honest, I mean, I around 2007 and 8, this was very popular in the libertarian movement. I mean, it was all interesting. It was definitely at the time of movement to try to like fight the Fed, stop this mandatory inflation, Centeridge, they're paying everything. And so crypto was big, and then COVID made it mainstream. And so now you see Bitcoin, hit over $100,000 after the inauguration. It's come back down as people have started to try to figure out and settle this. But as an American currency, I mean, what's your take? Give me the right conspiracy theory side of like how you justify us. One, like, we're a broke country. We're broke. We've started a sovereign nation fund, which makes no sense, and now we're wanting to get involved in crypto. So, yeah.
I think this is America's, I don't know how to say it. I'll say it in words that I think it's America's way of creating the Fed again, right? I think they're going to use Bitcoin as a way to try and save yourselves because you're right. Like, they're trying to cut out all this spending and find all this money to pay for what? Interest on loans. I think Bitcoin or an American digital asset is going to be the way that they fix the solution short term, but it's not going to fix the solution because the digital asset is only going to be a viable market for maybe 10 years. They keep talking about these event horizons we're coming towards. You got AI, you've got quantum computing. Once quantum computing comes into it, throw away your Bitcoin.
There are some technologies that are coming out, like there's even a Web 4.0 and this crypto, like Solana. I like the blockchain. I like the technology overall. It's a hit because now they're creating these blockchains that you can build stuff on top of. And when you talk about an AI, this is really great because you can build the entire structure, the platform, and you can build these AI tools that operate on top of it, which basically could become like your assistant, right? And so figuring out how to make those is another question. But the technology I really like. I think it will be there. But what you're talking about is exactly what my concern is. It seems like there's a push to make Solana the country's blockchain platform. And that worries me because then it could do exactly like you say, which is now it could give a government a controlling edge to say where and how money is moving instead of allowing more of what the whole reason Bitcoin was really invented was to say basically it can be anywhere at any place. I mean, there is no central control of it. So I agree.
There's another place, there's a secondary place where Bitcoin fails in reality as well. And I mean, that's, people here in Queensland right now, how are they accessing and using their Bitcoin? We had a push for renewable energies in this country. So whenever there's a storm, people go without houses for, weeks. I mean, how is Bitcoin going to work without electricity? if we're pushing for renewable energies, I can't keep up with the mental gymnastics of what the people on TV are saying. And everything's going to be on, our digital IDs and our digital money is all going to be safe in the cloud that we can't access in an emergency when you need to.
And sadly, I do love the technology. I love it, but I own absolutely no crypto. So out of my entire portfolio, I have no crypto in it. I'm always like, and our IRS does require, like, you have to say, like, how much crypto do you have or not. I'm always like, I still can't get my mind. Is it an asset? Is it currency? It's clearly an asset now. I mean, that's why they're going after it. So everybody, I think, is agreed it's not a currency, but what it holds, I don't know. So.
Yeah. There is value there. I think it's like, there's still going to be a need for some kind of physical currency. They have a bus service here that gets me to any beach I want to go to, and it's only 50 cents for a ride. But it costs me $10 to get a card, and then I have to charge that card to use the bus. I can't pay physical money. No one can pay physical money. I've tried to give them physical money. They can't take it. I can't use my key card to tap onto the bus. I have to use this card. So 90% of the passengers don't even pay the 50-cent fare.
Actually, I know when I went to Sydney, it was convenient. You can basically slap your card anywhere. Go on the taxi, you can slap your card. Go on a ferry, you can slap your card.
Again, we work on the honest system here.
All right, on our last thoughts here, I'm going to try to keep us under an hour and get back. But right now, let's run through some predictions of what we think this next week will have for us. We have in the U.S., they're really pushing tariffs heavy. That's one big thing. Another one that's facing the world right now that just happened today. There's some missing reports of what happened, but the U.S. and Ukraine agreed to a ceasefire, which is not a surprise. I think Ukraine would cease fire anytime that Russia gets the hell out of their country. So it's really always been about Russia. An American delegation went, so they have a negotiator that has really been doing a lot of this, but he went to talk to Putin. So Putin at first is in Kursk wearing his military gear for the first time, trying to act tough. They're taking back Kursk. Ukraine has lost some ground. And so, he basically says, no, forget this. I mean, this is just going to let them, why would we stop the war? We're already moving, which goes to the point that he's, if the fact that he hasn't invaded another country isn't enough, now he says he wants to go more. But we now left, and there's some other reports that say Putin is like, all right, well, I'll consider the ceasefire, but I want some guarantees. So there's that. And then there are the world of tariffs, right? We're threatening to put a 200% tariff on alcohol coming out of Europe. So in our short time, what do you think the next week will have, that will be playing catch up in those two events for the news?
Yeah, I think the media is going to be playing catch up on anything Trump does for a while because they haven't learnt Trump's strategy yet. Trump comes in and he shows you that he's got at least an ace.
Now we differ because you think it's grand strategy, and I think he's just.
What I'm saying is,
he's an idiot.
Well, what I'm saying is, it works for him though. Like he says he's going to go in and take over Gaza. Now you're going to have the Middle East sort out their own problems. You know what I mean? Like he's not serious about the things that sound ridiculous because they are ridiculous.
Is he or isn't he? Because sometimes I'm like, I sort of distance myself from the party. Since they had Trump speak there, I've distanced myself from the party.
Okay, well, so maybe it's your TDS that's getting in the way here then. But what I'm saying is, like, where was the critical thinking when Biden was apparently in charge? Where was the critical thinking when all these other decisions were being made and when he was saying stuff that they weren't even real words, like in any language? Now you want to pay attention to who's at the switchboard? That's the thing. Whoever's commentating on Trump usually has TDS, and on purpose, they take seriously the things that he doesn't mean, and then they don't take seriously the things that he does mean. And so, it's. I just call it muddying the waters. That is what is going on.
Well,
that's the noise.
I agree that the news wants to run on anything that is probably not worthwhile news and ignore the basis. They take it all out of context. But at the same time, Trump is trying to get them to do that. So he wants to be in the middle of everything constantly. So when he's talking to someone and they're not biting on it, he'll say something crazy. So he'll do this to try to be in. So I don't think it's 100% the media's fault. Like he is feeding them anything they thinks that, will keep him in the spotlight.
I'll tell you why it is 100% his fault, because this is what the media don't get. Everyone knows Trump is like personality-wise, like he's a dick. Everyone knows that, right? We all are on the spectrum in some degree, I reckon. I don't know whether I've got closer to autism or Asperger's, you know, but Elon Musk, it's very obvious, right? Some people, it's not as obvious. And I think Trump is just one of those ones where his things, he's very selfish and he is very, everything's, what I'm saying is, we all know that. The media doesn't need to go on 24/7 a day about how it is.
As soon as they take a break, he goes and throws something else. He's like, I'm gonna put tariffs on Canada. Oh, wait, we're turning them off. Everybody, so it is whiplash.
No, the media shouldn't be turning them off. That's the problem. The reason why people stop watching CNN, Fox, all these channels is because, like me and you, we go watch it from the source now because it's unedited. I tried to watch the inauguration. I looked up anywhere on YouTube I could find it. I couldn't watch it on YouTube because everyone was relaying it, commentating on it, even the major news outlets. And all they wanted to talk about what everyone was wearing, like all the gossip and, you know, they're trying to bring us into this intimate situation. No one cared about that. Everyone just wanted to hear what was going on. And they kept cutting away anytime they didn't like what was going on. I finally found something on X that I could see. It was like unfiltered, just raw video. And that was the most watched video. Everyone wants to see it for themselves. The people that are listening to the TV, they don't want to think about it anyway. They just want to hear what someone else's opinion of it is. But if you're a genuine truth seeker, or if you want to find real data, you're not going to go to a secondhand source that gives you a summary. You're going to go to the person on X and you're going to read what they actually said. You're going to see the 10 million people shooting that idea down or supporting that idea. This is what America was founded on the principles of freedom. And that's what we've lost. That's what Australia, we don't have the freedom. We don't have the constitution like you do. But, you know, I think your war of independence scared the Brits enough to let us make some of our own rules, right? But, you know, we could have a revolution if we need to, you know. I mean, we want freedom. That's where the world is going. And, you know, if America's not ready to give the people freedom anymore, then America's not going to be around much longer.
I like it. On those final words,
I love you, America.
Join the conversation where we unpack the wild, interconnected chaos shaping the world, including population decline and all of the reasons for it. Actually, we don't have a name yet, but by the time this goes out, we'll have a name. I did look up Decline Dude is actually a guy already, so I don't know if Dude Decline will match that. So we'll see. We may end up being the hostile dysfunction. So we'll see. We have that to figure out. But stay tuned until next week.